My name is Ryan, and this is my story, bringing you deep into the shadows of history's most chilling crimes. Welcome to Behind the Tape, where we unravel true crime stories soaked in mystery, terror, and heartbreak. Today, we take you back to one of Brisbane's darkest moments, the Coorparoo Junction murders. It was a humid evening in March 1964 in Brisbane, Australia. The streets around Coorparoo Junction were calm, with the typical hustle and bustle of neighbourhood shops beginning to wind down. Mothers pulled their children inside for the evening, and the glow from streetlights created long shadows on the pavement. For most, it seemed like just another night, but for one family, it would become a living nightmare. Rosina Wood, a mother of 4, was a familiar face around the neighbourhood. Known for her warm smile and kind heart, she lived a modest but happy life with her children. That night, she and her daughters Gracie and Meta were home in their small brick house, oblivious to the danger lurking nearby. Jim Whiteford was a man whose life had spiraled into darkness. His early years had been troubled, marked by poverty, petty crimes, and a growing dependence on drugs that slowly consumed him. By 1964, Whiteford was desperate, unpredictable, and dangerous. Under the influence of powerful substances, he made a fateful decision: he needed money, and he was willing to do anything to get it. Whiteford had been watching the house on Wooloowungabubba Road for several days. He knew Rosina and her children lived there, but it didn't matter to him. That night, driven by desperation and intoxication, he broke into their home armed with a knife. What followed would haunt Brisbane for decades. It was around 10:30 p.m. when Whiteford forced his way inside the house. Rosina was in the kitchen, tidying up after dinner, while her daughters Gracie and Meta were in the living room. The sound of breaking glass startled them, but before they could react, Whiteford was upon them. Rosina tried to reason with him, pleading for the safety of her daughters, but Whiteford was beyond reason. In a frenzy fueled by drugs and fear of being caught, he lashed out violently. Rosina fought with all her strength to protect her children, but Whiteford overpowered her. Gracie, only 12 years old, screamed for help as she tried to pull him away from her mother. The scene was chaotic, furniture overturned, blood splattered on the walls, and desperate cries that were heard too late by neighbors. By the time Whiteford fled the house, leaving behind a scene of carnage, Rosina and Gracie lay lifeless on the floor. Meta, though gravely injured, clung to Lee. Neighbors, alerted by the commotion, rushed to the house. What they found was beyond comprehension. One witness later described the scene as something out of a nightmare. Rosina and Gracie were declared dead at the scene, but Meta was still breathing, barely. Paramedics worked quickly to stabilize her and rushed her to the hospital, where doctors fought to save her life. Meanwhile, the police launched one of the most intense manhunts Brisbane had ever seen. The media dubbed the attack the Coorparoo Junction murders, and the public was gripped by fear and outrage. Who could commit such a heinous crime? Detectives combed through the crime scene, searching for any clue that could lead them to the killer. Bloody footprints, fingerprints, and the broken window gave them some leads, but it was a witness report that would prove crucial. A neighbor recalled seeing a man lurking near the house earlier that day, a man who matched the description of Jim Whiteford. Whiteford was a known troublemaker in the area, with a history of drug use and petty crime. Detectives quickly zeroed in on him as their prime suspect. 2 days later, Whiteford was arrested at a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. He was disheveled, paranoid, and still under the influence of drugs. During his interrogation, Whiteford initially denied everything. But faced with mounting evidence, he eventually confessed. The trial of Jim Whiteford captivated the nation. The courtroom was packed every day, with spectators eager to catch a glimpse of the man responsible for such a brutal crime. The prosecution painted Whiteford as a cold-blooded killer who had mercilessly taken the lives of a mother and her young daughter. They highlighted his drug use, his lack of remorse, and the overwhelming evidence against him. Meta, who had miraculously survived the attack, became the star witness. Though her injuries left her with physical and emotional scars that would never fully heal, she bravely took the stand to recount the horror of that night. Her testimony was heart-wrenching and brought many in the courtroom to tears. The defense, on the other hand, tried to portray Whiteford as a man who had lost control due to his drug addiction. They argued that he hadn't intended to kill anyone and that his actions were the result of a tragic combination of desperation and substance abuse. But the jury wasn't convinced. After deliberating for just 3 hours, they returned with a unanimous verdict, guilty on all counts. Whiteford was sentenced to life imprisonment, the sentence that many felt was too lenient given the brutality of his crimes. He spent the next 43 years behind bars, where he was reportedly a model prisoner. But for the Wood family and the community of Coorparoo, no amount of time served could erase the pain and loss he had caused. Whiteford died in 2007 at the age of 74, taking many of his secrets to the grave. To this day, the motive behind his actions remains unclear. Was it purely a robbery gone wrong, or was there something more sinister? The Coorparoo Junction murders left an indelible mark on Brisbane. For years, the house where the tragedy occurred remained vacant, a haunting reminder of what had happened there. Neighbors spoke of strange occurrences, lights flickering on and off, whispers in the dead of night, and an eerie feeling that never quite went away. For Meta, life was never the same. She struggled with survivor's guilt and PTSD, but eventually found strength in sharing her story. She became an advocate for victims of violent crime, dedicating her life to helping others find hope and healing. The Coorparoo Junction murders serve as a grim reminder of how quickly life can be shattered by violence. While the case may have faded from headlines, the memory of Rosina and Gracie lives on in the hearts of those who knew and loved them. Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of Brisbane's darkest chapters. If you want to hear more true crime stories like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Behind the Tape. Until next time, stay safe and stay vigilant.